Okay, we'll jump right in because I know we all have a million things to do, and Nolita has a time crunch, and we want to fit in a lot of the hot topics that I pulled together for us to talk about today. First, I just want to say I'm just glad we're all here this time because we missed our sweetie pie Nolita last time.
Hi.
I miss you guys. So sorry I couldn't do it. Yeah. But I'm happy to be here.
We'll get into why you weren't with us a little bit later, and you can let everybody know, where you were and what was going on. But with everything going on, like it's I don't know to call it funny or what, but like our last conversation, the worst thing that was happening in the world was Corona. Obviously, there's a lot more things going on in the world today than there was even just a month ago. Absolutely. And with us, still being very remote and wanting to stay connected and wanting to be a source of inspiration and education to our audience, even outside of the world of public relations, I thought it would be really cool if we do this sort of like PR girl talk on a regular basis and just provide these episodes for our audience until we're out of this and we can start thinking about how we take the show to the next level. But until then, I think this is a really great way to stay connected and invite other people to hang out with us in this forum and just like keep this going. So I'll keep riding it until the wheels fall off, as long as you guys are with me.
I'm down.
Awesome. So some of the topics, obviously, because we're living through this time, are not going to be like the most warm and fuzzy, but I think we owe it to ourselves and to our audience to talk about these things and to continue to be real, because that's why people like watching PRGirl and you guys specifically, because you're just 100% real. So I wanted to dive right in and talk about the fact that we've seen some horrific acts of murder. I mean, that's really what it is, happen on our Black brothers and sisters in the most recent weeks. I know that as a Black woman myself, racism is not something that's new, right? It's not something that is even, in my opinion, more escalated than it's ever been. It's just being shown. It's just being talked about. It's just being not ignored. And it's hard for everyone to see, whether you're Black and any other color. But I wanted to just jump off and hear a little bit from all of you about what it's been like just living through this last month, this last few weeks, witnessing some of the stuff that we've witnessed and talking to friends and just like being a human right now. Nolita, you want to kick it off and then we'll go to Alex and Fallon.
Yeah. I still to this day have not been able to watch the entire video of George Floyd, simply because I'm tired and I'm about to be 34 and I'm tired already. So when I think about that, I think about my mom is in her mid to late 50s. So how tired is she? My grandmother, her late 70s. How tired is she? My grandfather, he's in his 90s. Can you imagine how tired he is of having to be subjected to that? And then somehow we're supposed to be socially conditioned to just wake up and then still operate with that level of trauma. So it's been, like you said, it's just something that has been known in our community, but the world is now getting to look on the inside of it without, just the rose-colored glasses to distract or, with a twisted story. No, you saw a man get murdered, period. And it's been heavy. It's been really, really heavy. And like even when I'm driving, if I see a Black man like pulled over by the police, I like to say a prayer. Why am I programmed to do that? Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Alex, what are you feeling right now as you watch the Black experience kind of play out for the world to see?
I think I feel a mixture of emotions. I feel grateful for the chance to have a voice and to be part of the change that has been needing to happen for centuries. I feel grateful for the young voices that are fighting stronger than anything I've ever seen, even though I know people have been fighting before us for decades. And I give all the love to, you know, Angela Davis and Malcolm X and so many different people that have come before us that are even our age. But to go to a vigil, I went to a vigil, we've been to a number of protests together as a family. And what was so incredible was to see that the average age was about 20 to 25. And it was incredible to see that the generation that's about 10 years younger than me is angrier than anything I've ever seen in my whole life. And it feels like a beautiful moment for change, while on the other side, and by change I mean new eyes being open to it, right? So there's been a lot of eyes that have known, lived, understood, and breathed this type of treatment or this type of oppression. What I've seen as a white person is a lot of other people who may have never even understood the surface layer, let alone the layers below it, now being educated through social media sharing, protest walking, reading, understanding historical dives that nobody even would have ever taken the time to do, watching documentaries, investing in books that are now sold out on Amazon that are about anti-racism for children. The amount of awareness that I've seen is incredible, but I can never find any thrill in that because it should never be happening, and it's at the cost of a horrendous amount of trauma and community neglect. You know, we've neglected the idea of community for so long and kept ourselves individualized for so long that we've run ourselves into a place that is broken. And for that, it's beyond anything I can understand, the pain, because it's not something that directly affects me every day. So it's been a dichotomy of things, right? I see progress and movement in a way from my generation that I've never, ever seen. I mean, I've never seen political movement like this. But at the same time, I'm being even more exposed to the injustices, but I feel grateful for the knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think one thing I was thinking about, even just listening to you and Nolita so far, is I'm happy that it can no longer be where Black people are accused of exaggeration, right?
Yeah.
I think like that was a piece of positivity that I took out of this, because if there's still anyone out there who is thinking when a Black person is like, I try and get a cab and they won't pull over, or we're scared of the police, or, you know, the list is very long. And there are people who would be like, well, I don't think that that's like, you know, they would literally say to my face, because I've never seen that. I don't feel that way. Therefore, I don't think that that's really what it is. Maybe you're exaggerating.
That's a form
When has that happened to you last? It's almost like they ask you to prove all of the bad things that's ever happened to you because you're Black. And it's like, is this enough proof? Is this enough proof yet? You know? Fallon, I do want to give you a chance to just, you know, talk about how you're feeling right now and just watching the Black experience kind of play out this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm devastated, like sad, confused. Like Alex said, it's nothing I can even remotely relate to, but I feel this almost immediately, like call to action. Like I need to be doing more. Like what is my first step? Because I'm someone who doesn't experience discrimination on a daily basis, or can even remotely, you know, relate to it. However, what can I do? Like, what do I have the control to do? So immediately, I mean, that's educate, right? And I think very, like personally, I felt also grateful to challenge myself, to surround myself with women I'm looking at right now, women in my circle who are come from a diverse backgrounds and have different beliefs, and how do I step up to the plate? And it's uncomfortable. It definitely feels uncomfortable, which I'm celebrating, because that means that there's a lot more than has to be done, even in my little home that I may not realize day to day. So I was taught to be a lifelong learner, and I will commit to that, and I'll continue to surround myself with my friends who have diverse backgrounds. And I think the problem is, and I kind of felt like for a while, it's not like I want to learn to see color and celebrate it. And I do, and I want to bring that into my life like on a more consistent basis. So we're just continuing to have those conversations in my home, in my house. And we're all devastated and sad, but I need to constantly call myself to action and hold myself accountable to just continue educating, because this isn't my life, and I didn't grow up this way. So my heart hurts, and I'm celebrating the opportunity to challenge myself to continue, staying educated and so continually celebrating diversity in my clients and my work and in my life as well. And I think as publicists, we have an amazing opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I like that you bring up education, because that is, honestly, I think where most people, Black people included, need to start. If there are areas around just American history as it pertains to the Black experience that people don't know, like that is where everyone should start, because there's so much that on purpose has been hidden from all of us from a historical perspective in our textbooks, in our schools.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, politically, that if we just did the digging and just found the facts out for ourselves, we would know, a lot more. And that makes me curious about, and this question is for all three of you, what has popped up for you as a new piece of information, right? Has there been anything that throughout this experience, throughout the additional education we've all been giving ourselves, throughout just watching it play out, has there been anything new to come to you that is like, wow, I didn't know that? Like, did you have any moments like that?
None that I can really think of. Well, I'll say this. I think that with this, as a Black woman, there's an instant feeling of I need to act, I need to move. And my family had to remind me that I have to move in a smart way and move with purpose and strategy. So that's one thing and it reminded me of why, I guess, to understand both sides of rioting, to understand that there are people who are not going to engage in that, but there are definitely people who get frustrated. They do not have the access or the experience to know how to deal with trauma, and this is how it comes out. So I think that it made me just to kind of look at things from both sides. So that was a new experience for me to have that conversation with my family.
Alex, what about you? Any new truths come out of this for you? Realizations?
Yes, many. One, I think the idea of no justice, no peace, and breaking that down to understand it, about the white experience of the white desire for peace over justice, and really understanding how much white people have kept themselves separated or silenced their Black friends, whether it was their emotions, their expression of what's been happening, in order to continue a life of comfort over justice for our Black friends. That's been a huge awakening for me. Is, we go and we march because we support what's happening, and I made a sign that said no justice, no peace. And I really, before I went to go march with this sign, was like, take a look at yourself and make sure you really understand what this means before you hold this sign up. And I really encourage all white people to do that. And I've talked with a lot of friends and just watched a lot of commentary on this idea of no justice, no peace, and the idea that without justice, we cannot be peaceful, which goes into Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. Without Black Lives mattering, all lives cannot matter. And so that's been big for me, is to understand and uncover the ways in which we've silenced Black people and our Black friends with their experience, because if we haven't experienced it, we don't give them the space. So I think opening space has been huge as well. And just the idea of like white comfort, like really learning more about like the like historical context of people who feel social justice desires, who are white, but won't go all the way in because they still want to be really comfortable, and really unpacking what it means to be uncomfortable for the sake of justice for all has been really fascinating and eye-opening for me.
Yeah. Can I ask you to elaborate on the white comfort a little bit? Because I wonder what you would say, or if you might have even been in this conversation already. Like, what would you say to a white person who still doesn't believe that white comfort or privilege is a real thing? Have you been in that conversation? And if you haven't, what would you say to them?
That's interesting. I mean, to be honest, my mom, she hates when I talk about her on the show. My mom and I had lunch the other day, and I said something about some family members that I think needed, to have an in-depth conversation with. And the answer was, let's just not go there. Let's just not do that. And the point right now is, yes, do that, go there, say it, talk about it, be uncomfortable. If they need to walk away, then so be it. I don't know. So to elaborate on it, I've had some conversations. Jason and I have talked a lot about it. We've talked about it in our home. We've talked about ways to talk about it with Henry. I mean, it seems so obvious that it's hard to even explain, but what I would say is, if you've walked out the door, there's a great posting that I don't know who wrote it, about the like 50 things that Black people need to think about before they do. Mm-hmm. And that we don't have to think about any of those things. And they're all also ways that a lot of Black Americans have died. Going to buy candy and soda. Do you ever think about that when you run into 7-Eleven? No, never, never, never. Getting pulled over, or allowing your son to leave the fucking house. Do I have to think about my son leaving the house and getting shot? No. And so when you put yourself in the shoes of someone who has to live every single day in some sort of fear, purchasing something, pulling out of a driveway, and the amount of trauma that must cause, because it's like getting ready to go to war every day. It's the same thing. I mean, you have to be on an extra edge. As my friend Gabby said, she said, I get ready in the morning, I do my makeup and my hair, and I look beautiful. And then I look back and there's an extra weight behind me, and it's my Blackness that I carry every day. And it's a weight that I have to carry that no one will ever understand who's not Black. And I guess that's how I would explain it. There is a looking over the shoulder. Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to look over your shoulder?
You feel uncomfortable for your entire being, your well-being. Yeah.
If that is not traumatic, and we are not actively taking care of the mental health of all Americans, but especially Black Americans, then what the fuck are we doing? I mean, how are we not taking care of one of the most important populations to the history of this country, who have had to carry the weight of trauma and exploitation? I mean, I don't even know how else to say, like, that's it. That's white fragility, right? People that are white do not want to acknowledge their part in the silencing of a voice who has built this country and also been massively oppressed. And so I think that's probably, I don't even know if I
that's good. Yeah. Not to get too lighthearted, and I'll jump right over to you in a second, Fallon. But there is this secret desire, I won't talk for all Black people, but for lots of us, to be a fly on the wall when white people are talking. And, right?
I would buy a ticket to that show.
Yeah.
I surely would.
Yes. Like Beyonce or fly on the wall in a white person's house. Like,
Ding, 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 ding.
yeah.
Yep.
We would be at the white person's house for sure, because and that's why I ask my white friends and allies questions, because I know that these folks are out there, and they might not even be racist. It might just be like just a level of ignorance that exists in some people that these conversations are being had. So I'm grateful for the allies like you who are just telling the truth, right? In a way that people can digest it and understand it, and hopefully walk away and like make some type of positive change in their life and with their children, and like just make this better. The other thing I will say though is like our system as a country is not built on caring about anybody. First of all, like they don't care about anybody. This country was built by white, straight businessmen who are only really looking out for themselves. Yeah, straight. For themselves, and anybody else, you know, good luck. Go figure it out and like pick yourself up off your bootstrings. But all those other groups have very different challenges, you know, that we face. We have challenges as women, all women that right? Black people, Asian, Latino. Oh my goodness, like, you know, it goes on and on. But anyway.
You can't build a country off of a desire for the greatest economic wealth that's ever been seen. So props to us for that, without burning the people who helped you. I mean, there's no in between, you know?
Right. Capitalism
and socialism are two options.
Capitalism isn't for the people, it's for the businesses.
It's for the three people at the top that are white and straight.
I love it. Fallon, any major new truths or
I mean, yeah, honestly, the biggest new truth for me, I'm just going to be honest about it, is like the uncomfortability, right? Like I grew up in a house, like I said, where we celebrate differences, all differences, race, gender, disability, abilities. But a few weeks and the light that's been brought through this movement is not enough. Like I do not feel fully educated. I do not feel comfortable having conversations. There's so much more work to do. So I think I'm someone who likes to like feel pretty confident in most conversations and topics at the table. And like, I'm the first person to admit like I have so much more work to do. And I feel compelled to do that. Like I care about every single person in my life that I love, regardless of what they look like, their abilities, where they came from, right? But like, that's not enough. Like we are being called to do more. So where do we start, right? Like Farissa, I woke up one morning and I just emailed you and I was like, the first place that I'm going to start is I'm going to reach out, like how you call it, like my allies, my friends in my circle who I may not experience, you know, this on a daily basis, but I certainly have friends, mentors, people I look up to that do. So let me reach out to someone who I trust, that I can ask the question, like, coach me, like, where do I start? How do I help? While I continue to do my own exploration, but just the need to show support, and like, regardless of what you look like at the end of the day, you know, like love truly is all that matters. And we've been, I mean, there's a reason this Martin Luther King quote is circulating, that light is the only thing that can drive out darkness, right? So that's kind of been like our mantra, and we just continue to use the word light. I think my family says it, I don't know, dozens of times a day. But how do I find the light in all those situations? And I think that really just starts with education and reaching out to the people in your community who, and your friends that are going through this, and just being optimistic and finding ways to help so that I can continue as a publicist and a friend, someone who has a lot more white people than people of color in her circle. How do I educate them so that, and use my voice through the incredible, you know, friends that I do have that are dealing with this and just continue to diversify my circle, my work life. And that uncomfortability is like has been the biggest awakening to me. And I want to be honest about that and commit to continuing to show up and challenge myself through these conversations.
Yeah, no, it's good. And it's good. It's good to be uncomfortable, right? No matter what, because that means you're growing, you're evolving, you're turning into the next version of yourself. This topic, absolutely. I think it calls, that's probably the number one thing it calls for, is for the people that this system has benefited the most to be the most uncomfortable right now. And then we can, like, you know, shift some things around. Quickly, before we dive into everyone's personal lives and catch up with you guys before we have to wrap, what about work? Like, in terms of any clients or partnerships, or for you, Nolita, you know, the company that you're with, what are brands doing, thinking, saying? We'll start with Nolita, because Mael is owned by a Black woman. What has the conversation been? You know, what are you guys doing as a brand?
Well, for one, we are all appreciative and blessed with the opportunity to have a space where we don't have to come to work and hide how we feel during this time. So I don't have to put that in my purse and tuck it. I can go to work and I can talk about it. We can create campaigns without me having to prove why we need to create a campaign or even a post. So that part has been, it's been so, I guess, just therapeutic for me, because that wasn't the experience I had at the last company I was with. So it's given us just an opportunity to do what we had normally done anyway, which was to celebrate Black-owned businesses, Black female entrepreneurship, Black couples that are in entrepreneurship. So the fact that they are creating opportunities not only to build their own legacy, but also letting Black professionals like myself to come into a space where I'm fully supported and I have that connection. And we can bond off of that connection, and we can really create a beautiful story to help Black women feel even more beautiful, while educating them about how they can be activists in their community, because that's what we are really calling for our Mael Mavens to be, which is to be more active, to use their voice, use their privilege as Black women, because we have privilege. We are strong Black women out here, and we have access to things, and we can get shit done.
Yes, I love it. Fallon, anything with your clients? Have they asked you, you know, what should we be saying, thinking, doing? Anything new come out of it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a variety across the board with my clients, and I'm, you know, proud to say every single one of them has come to me and asked me or bounced ideas off. Actually, already came with concepts and ideas and was like, let's just comb these through together. Whether that's creating, you know, a platform to highlight more Black voices, diverse voices through incredible social media platforms. I have Amsala, who's my bridal brand and one of my bigger brands, who's a Black-owned business. So it's been really, really interesting I mean, we are just slammed by editors right now that want to highlight, you know, and it's great, and it feels like right now it's this hot topic, and we're seeing all these roundups about support this Black business, and you know, it makes you think, like, the fact that we actually have to be not pitching these articles, but supporting these stories. Like, there's a piece to it. It's like the amount of pickup that I've had in the past few weeks for Amsala versus the last few months. It's like upsetting to me that this is it feels like a hot topic, and I'm like, this needs to be more consistent and more robust constantly, but at least we're starting to bring attention. And I think what's been really interesting, and I don't know, it just felt like we're just, you know, being talked about for this roundup, and what's the actual purpose of the article. So we decided to come out with a statement celebrating and talking about Amsala's Ethiopian background and her CEO, her husband, who's now the CEO, who's African American. And how they celebrate the fact of being a Black-owned business, and how over the years, even through the challenges, like there were some big opportunities that were given to Amsala, and how she felt supported by her own Black community, which I think is really interesting and empowering and hopefully inspiring for a lot of other emerging Black designers at this time. So I was excited to see them take a different approach and angle that felt like a little bit more uplifting, because that's definitely like a story, I don't say storyline in terms of PR, but just in terms of conversation to be had here too. And it's exciting for me as a white publicist to be like celebrating and telling that story. So I think it's been a really fun project for us to work on. And of course, I'm thrilled about all the roundups, but I hope we continue to see this much support around these Black designers. But there has been a huge pickup of press and trends lately in terms of roundups and lists, which have been great. But I think the Amsala statement and just the approach of celebration has been really uplifting. So I've enjoyed working on that.
Love that, Fallon, and let me tell you why. There's so much, it's so easy to ask a Black person or a Black business owner, like, how have you done it? How have you survived? How have you done all these things in spite of being Black? How did you become who you are? You know how many times people have asked me how I have become who I am? And I go, I don't even know how do I answer that question? My mom gave birth to me. And then I went like this, and then, I mean, I don't know. I am me. I am me. I am a compilation of all of my experiences and the people I have spoken to my entire life, just like everyone else. We are all just a compilation of our experiences. Right. This is how I became me. So in order to treat Black people just like people, it's let me celebrate what you are, right? Instead of, oh my God, how did you become this? Like, because the narrative that we need to get away from is that it's like someone like me or someone like Nolita or any other Black, you know, successful person is a anomaly or is something that, like, you know, you made it or I made it. And it's like, no, there's a million other Farissas out there. There's a million other Nolitas out there. They just don't have the same platform today that we have today, right? But there's no reason why, if given the same experiences, you know, exposure, platform, etc., they would be, you know, just as spectacular, right? And think about it this way, like Beyonce is Beyonce because of the work that she put in, the meetings that her dad set up for her, the amount of dancing she did as a kid in high heels, like it's insane, right? But there are other people in this world who can sing just like her, who look just like her, have the same butt and hips she has, can put in the same weave that she does, and it would be the same thing, right? But it's that ingredient. So I like taking that approach, Fallon, and talking to other publicists about, if you have clients that are, you know, Black or it's a Black-owned business, the pitch should be, she's been here all this time, right? You're the one audience that is missing out on this spectacular brand or product or whatever it is, and almost making people have FOMO around all the things that they had no clue existed before we all watched, you know, George Floyd get murdered in the street. It's like, no, we all been here. We've all been, you know, Nolita's been wearing banging eyeshadow, right? Like, this is not new. This is not new. So I like that. And I would encourage a lot of people to pay attention to that and do the same. Okay, on that note, I want to get into some personal stuff. And honestly, I'm debating, I think we'll start with some of the heavy stuff and then end on more of a happy thing. So both Fallon and Nolita, in the past, since we've talked to you, you guys have experienced some personal hardships. Nolita, just want to start with you really quick. Let everyone know, I know you were experiencing some health stuff, like you're okay now, but what was going on? And just in case it's affecting someone else, like we always like to just share, right? So what were you experiencing a few weeks ago?
Yeah, so I guess I'm accustomed to like my menstruation having like the pre-pain and then the horror comes and then somehow I make it through on the other side. But this time, this shit was not going away. Like, I woke up the next day, I was still throwing up. And then it's like the top of my stomach literally locked up, and I just could not stop sweating, getting cold. I couldn't keep anything down, like not even crackers, even to drink water. So my body literally just, it almost shut down. Like I literally just threw up violently for 6 days.
Oh my
And
God.
then I went to the hospital, and it was really, really weird because you couldn't have anyone to go in with you. So you're by yourself. And I had forgotten my phone charger, so my phone died. So I'm just laying there for hours, and I sound like, like it was almost like I was on I don't know, some type of television show where you hear that person in the back like, help, help. That was me. I was making so much noise because I was in so much pain. Like I could not sit still. And they gave me some medicine, and that kind of calmed me down. But I felt like my pain wasn't taken seriously. They kind of just gave me something to more so sedate me. And then they released me, and I came home, and I had to be on medication for like the last 30 days, just to kind of like regulate my body and to get my stomach back in order, working correctly. And the next step is where I have to go back for a procedure where they'll put me to sleep and put a camera down and then look on the inside to see what it could be. My dad, he has Crohn's, so he was like, it might be that, but it could be something else. So I'm just gonna be positive about it. But I'm eating better. I'm staying hydrated. I'm making sure I'm trying to keep my stress level down, just so I don't like agitate my body or anything like that. And I feel fine. I'm very, paying attention.
Yeah.
Very.
Well, let us know when that procedure is so we can send you some positive energy vibes.
Of course,
that,
of course.
like a little PR girl hug from afar.
You're feeling better and not in pain. I'm so sorry to hear
So
that.
sorry you're going through that.
Yeah,
It sounds a little bit like Crohn's. My brother's girlfriend has it, and it's just so sad to see her, in a second just shift from like having a good time to like not okay,
Yeah.
It's like, and it's all with your stomach, and it sucks.
Yeah.
And you need like your core to do everything. So just to move is like excruciating.
And I can't imagine how scared you were. And
well, I heard somebody was with her though at the hospital. Who was with you at the hospital?
I was afraid you were alone.
He was in the parking lot.
So sweet.
He couldn't be in the waiting room. He couldn't be in the
They won't let for real.
Oh, really? Oh,
like
right.
having a baby right now, you can't even have your husband in the room. It's crazy.
They had the tri-flight security. He said, "Hold on, brother. No, you gotta go back." He was not playing.
Oh man. Okay. Well, maybe next episode we'll dig into who this mystery boo is and learn more about it.
Oh, she is blushing.
I love it. And tell your boo, Alex, we're going to meet him in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
But I do want to take a moment just for all of us to give Fallon like a virtual hug, because we know that you and your family experienced a really horrible loss in your family. And I want to give you the opportunity to share as little or as much as you're comfortable with the audience, because it was a difficult thing, and it still is. I mean, you guys are still navigating that. So we love you, and I can't even imagine, but you know that we're here for you. What do you want to tell the people?
No, thank you guys for that. And yeah, it's been a very life-changing last 5 weeks. So we lost my brother unexpectedly for us. Yeah, about 5 weeks ago now. It's like you know, you just imagine the worst thing that can happen in your life. And it's wild because there's so much happening in the world right now, but I think you go through something like this and like my world has just stopped. However, you know, I'm definitely not the only person in the world that's going through something traumatizing and destroying and devastating, right? Everyone, I kind of like everyone has something, and whatever that thing is that's devastating them is like taking up a lot of their mental space. And I think it's an important thing to talk about, you know, mental health, which is just another layer of what's happening, despite, you know, all the other craziness and darkness that's happening in our world right now. And, you know, I hope that whoever's watching this, that's, you know, feeling their own piece of something very personal that's happening in their life and having to go through all this, knows that they're not alone. And I think it's just, like I said earlier, just important to challenge yourself to have, you know, uncomfortable conversations, whatever that means. And my brother was on an episode last year. He was amazing. I have to brag for a second, but
Do it.
class president, he's like on prom corps, got his Eagle Scout, like just incredible. But you never know what's going on in someone's head. Even like my family, I think I have one of the most incredible families on the planet, and we're so like supportive, but everyone's battling their own battle and their own struggles. So I think it applies to a lot that's happening in our world, but you just can never assume someone's story and the hardship and the weight that they're carrying. And at the end of the day, I can tell you from firsthand experience, like love is the only thing that matters at the end of the day. You lose someone you love and you need love to get through it. And all you remember is that love with that person. So, you know, hate is totally irrelevant at the end of your life. Like it's I want to go back and just hug him.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing, spending as much time as I did with you and your family when we were filming this last season, I think the episode you're referring to is your birthday dinner. And like that evening with your family was spectacular. Like you could just see how much love you guys all have for each other. And I, as an outsider, knew it was 100% genuine. Your brother knew how much you loved him. And I'm happy that you also have that to go look at, you know, like to go and feel those feelings all over again.
I don't think anyone in my family, like that's one thing I want to say is like we just don't regret in terms of like knowing how much we loved him and he loved us. That was very clear. Like my family is so affectionate and sometimes too much, but we all have a lot of love inside of us. And that's one thing at the end of the day that I will say is like, it's not like, oh, I wish he knew I loved him more. Like he knew and I knew too. So there's a little bit of peace in that. I think it just goes back to how important love is and sharing and spreading those feelings.
Yes, absolutely. Well, like I said, we are here for you no matter what. Reach out and, you know, we'll come running, honestly. So
I love you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So speaking of love, because there's so many ways that in the short amount of time, I feel like I've known you guys like 10 years sometimes, and then sometimes it's like, you know, 2 seconds. But there's so many different ways that the audience has gotten to watch you guys experience love. And we've talked about Jason in the past, and Alex so graciously was like, how about we introduce him to the audience?
Actually, bitch, you said.
No, you said it on last episode. You were like, oh, and I'll bring Jason. And I was
okay.
like,
When you were writing, you're like, bring Jason. I was like, oh, okay.
no, go back and watch the tape. I just texted for confirmation. Bring Jason in. Bring Jason. Hi, Jason.
Jason.
It's so good to finally meet you.
Finally meet you as well. How does my makeup look? Is it good?
You're gorgeous.
Oh.
The most interesting man in the world. Like without trying.
I'm the most interesting man on my block. That's about it.
That's about it.
So between my husband, Joe Nee, who's like my co-director and editor on the show, and you, so you're like top 3 of straight men super fans of PRGirl. You have to be, right?
Absolutely. I've watched every episode.
Good.
Yeah, and I watched the recap reunion episode. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was very sweet and very endearing. And I just want to praise all of you guys for opening up your world to the cameras. That's a very vulnerable thing to do. I think it's amazing that anybody could do it. I don't necessarily think I've been in interviews before and I've talked about myself, but letting cameras follow you around and every time you turn around there's a camera all up in your face, you're like,
it's hard.
It's incredibly I'm sure it can be incredibly stressful for all of you at times. And not only that, but all that footage gets edited down to this one little 25-minute, and you're like, wait a second, they didn't finish my sentence, or or I didn't, there's so many different things that you can and can't control during the editing process, but and then putting it out there for your friends, your family, and your co-conspirators, it's pretty amazing. So.
There's a huge amount of trust that comes with it. And that's one thing I don't take lightly, that these 3 ladies put their trust in me to tell their story, right? Because if I took this footage and did, manipulated it in a way to tell a different story, then I wouldn't still have this deep relationship that I do with them. So I hold on to it tightly, the trust that they give me. But how are you? So I know you're a businessman too, and you're living in the same world that we're all living in. So like, talk to us about how you're personally doing, how your business is doing, and like how it's been just evolving this awesome relationship with Alex.
Well, obviously everybody's world came to a screeching halt, the weekend of March 13th. And I think we were just kind of in shock at first of everything that was happening. The world was changing. I started wearing a mask early on, and I remember people looking at me like, whoa, like, and I just wanted to be careful. Now everybody's in masks, and now a lot of people aren't in masks, and it's just I was just talking about this the other day. If you told the 7-year-old Jason that in 2020 everybody would be walking around in a ninja mask, I would be totally for it. I'd be like, that's amazing, great. But it's scary, and I'm sure it's really scary to kids now. Everybody's masked up. We have little Henry here, and he's, the questions, why are people wearing masks? Why can't I see my friends? And you have to answer those questions, respectfully to a 3-year-old. And, handling all of that, I think we handled it, I think we handled it fairly well.
I think we met it with a little bit of gratitude for a slowdown and a pause. I think when coronavirus hit, I was personally like just a little bit relieved, and we got to really lock into our home and, share really awesome memories and cook and do things like that. But it's definitely, what business?
Music, love, patience, and understanding are 3 things that completely evolve. We just we fill the house with good stuff. That's the best thing that anybody could do is, if you think like shitty things will happen. If you think good things and you keep that mindset, then I believe what you put out into the universe, it definitely will come back. My business came to a screeching halt after 7 years. And I have no foreseeable plans to get back into that business for at least another 18 months. It's just my business. I own a custom clothing business, and, everybody's working at home in sweats.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are wearing suits to what? Nothing.
Right. Interesting.
Or they're doing Zoom calls.
Right, you're dressed from the waist up.
Yeah, I'm totally naked below right now.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Just like to your point about if you think positive thoughts, then positive things will happen, right? So I'm 100% certain that as you guys continue to figure out what the next step is professionally, it'll all come together. But you listed 3 things: music, something, something. Yeah, are those like the secrets to a great relationship too? Like, what would you say for the folks who are watching, who, you know, has heard Alex talk about you guys and the, you know, the journey that it's been and how you guys got exactly where you are now? What would you say is like 1 or 2 things that's really how a relationship can be, you know, can work?
Listen to your partner. Listen to your partner, let them be seen, let them be heard, especially in moments of frustration and anger. And when you're in closed quarters 24/7, it can be a very daunting thing to wake up to day in and day out. And, you know, if you can get through this with your partner, then and come out of it lightly unscathed.
Come here, bud.
Then I think you'll be all right.
Come here.
Little Henry.
Henry, come say hi. Hurry.
But it's just, you know, listen to your partner, listen to their needs, listen to what they're actually saying, and learning that, you know, they're not attacking you, they're not trying to demean you. You know, you just gotta understand where they're coming from. And here's our partner.
Hi, Henry. You're such a big boy now.
Hey, Harry.
He's a giant.
He's giant. Elliot. Say hi, get close.
The big boy.
What happened? This is awesome. Well, thank you guys. I'm so happy to like know you now, Jason.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me
and
on.
hopefully we'll get to see you, like I'll get to see you with my own eyes, you know, here soon. But we're gonna wrap up. I know Nolita needs to go. So I just wanna give everyone a chance to just talk about what's next, right? Like what can the audience expect from you all next, either professionally or personally? We'll start with Nolita.
Professionally, you know, I'm gonna continue to make my Yale pop with the digital game. Personally, I'm gonna get around to finishing this podcast one day. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah, good. And are you still making episodes of what was the show you were doing on IGTV? Homegirl Mantra.
Oh yeah.
Homegirl Mantra is gonna be integrated into the new podcast.
Okay, all right. Well, keep us posted. Keep us posted. Fallon, what's next for you?
Okay, so what's next for me? There is nothing next. This is what I am going to work on living in the present moment. I am committing to this. This is something I have never been able to master. It's always what's next, what's tomorrow, what's next month, what's next year. Everything happens. My world is turned upside down right now. And I am committing to focusing on being present now. So it's just now. That's it. Danielle wants to hop in and say hi to you guys too.
Yes. Hey, Danielle.
You guys, I'm listening. You guys all did such a nice job talking.
Oh, thank you. You guys like normally look alike, but now it's just like ridiculous. Like what's happening here. So cute. Okay, Alex, what's next?
What's next? So bless you. So I too don't know what the future totally holds. For the first time in my life, I have based all of my identity and self-love on my career. And that has changed completely. Everything I've ever known is not ever going to be the same. But one thing that I'm really excited about is partnering up with my friend Gabrielle Pickens. She is a veteran and started Barracks to Baller, and we are going to be doing some work for our community together. Can you be quiet, please?
He's like, you invited me in, Mom.
I know, and I should have immediately pushed out right after. So we're going to be doing some work together. We're going to be starting, I think, some educational programs for business owners who are a little bit unsure of how they can help and what they can do. I think a lot of times it's been put on Black women to have those answers, and it's not fair. They're not an encyclopedia. So we are seeking to build programs around helping small businesses learn about the history, authenticity, and how to create content around what's going on that makes sense to them and that they're integrating properly and they have a long-term plan. So that's one thing we're working on. It's going to be called Brand Awake. And then I don't think I have much else. I have a client right now in Chicago that I love called Bestowal. Bestowal gifts, they're custom gifts that are beautifully curated. And we're working on a doctors and nurses program right now where you can buy the boxes for doctors and nurses on the front line of COVID. And we're currently giving 20% of those boxes back to My Hood, My Block, My City, which is an incredible organization in Chicago that has been around for a long time, but is making some of the biggest impact, I think, as far as giving back right now. So excited about giving back to doctors and nurses and offering people, when they purchase a box for a doctor or nurse, it's a care package, because oftentimes these doctors and nurses are getting equipment and like medical supplies and food, which is amazing, but like they're not getting like self-care. Like they need a candle and a cookbook and like some love and some lotion and some face masks and some foot masks. So this client has been really wonderful to work with, and I'm excited about the program and campaign that we're building. But personally, just working on the house, and we went on a boat yesterday. We just rented it. We spent a little bit of money, and I think just being able to have moments of family togetherness, education for what's happening around us. The racial injustices are not going away, and just because people's feed might be a little bit more quiet doesn't mean that we need to stop with what we're doing. So our focus and commitment as a family is to continue to educate ourselves, to continue to fight and find opportunities to fight, and to amplify as many voices as we can with what we're doing.
And also educate this one here early on.
Yeah, you know, because he's the future. And no pressure, Henry, but you got a huge weight to lift, okay?
This is the future, love and acceptance. You know, racism isn't in you. It's a learned, taught behavior, and it all starts in the home.
Yeah.
And we need.
Well, I'm proud. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say we need to teach kids, and we also need to teach old dogs new tricks. You know?
Yes. Well, Jason, you help us with that, because I got two little girls here that I have to teach how to be Black women, and you guys have Henry, and I think these old dogs, like, we need to send. You're an ally now too. You're a collected ally. You go in and you go make the change, because they'll automatically trust you, right? You'll walk in.
It's the beard. They'll trust.
The beard is like this calms people down. They're like, he's not threatening, until I start talking to him, and they're like, oh no, he's pretty serious.
He means what he's saying. Yes, I love it. Well, guys, as always, it's been a blast. I love every second of hanging out with you guys. I have some ideas for episodes 3, 4, and beyond. We're going to invite some people. So once I get it on the calendar, I will let you guys know, and we'll keep this going as long as we can.
Okay.
All right, guys. Have a great week. I love you all. Bye, Henry. Cutie pie.
Bye.
Bye.
So really, hello, Monday.